Good evening, everyone. We have with us today Captain Ashok B. Shirur. Sir is an ex-air defense officer. He served with the Indian Army for 5 years, and then for the last 3 decades, he has been in the information security and cyber security field. He runs his own business. The brand name is Micros. And Sir is, I would say that, he was someone who started the concept of information security and cyber security more than 30 years ago. He has been consulting and providing services to a large number of Fortune 500 companies, big public sector undertakings, and he's regularly invited for sharing his perspective and wisdom on information security and cybersecurity. We have also invited him today to give us a perspective on the risk management framework of cybersecurity for cybersecurity and information security professionals. Thank you for your time today,
Thank
sir.
you. Good evening and thank you.
Sir, my first question to you would be: how would you suggest that professionals who are managing information security should approach the framework from a risk management perspective?
I think the first step would be to actually establish the context. Unless the objectives are defined, unless there is a clear articulation of the business objectives and the role that the information security is attempting at achieving those objectives, it would not reach anywhere. So one needs to understand the environment, assess the organizational structure, business processes, and the technology landscape. So that would be possibly the first step. Then one needs to then identify what are the risks and what are the assets. Unless you are clear about what are the assets that you're trying to protect and what are the risks that those assets are exposed to, how are you going to go about defining your security policy? So that's important. Identification of potential threats and vulnerabilities that could impact the confidentiality, integrity, and the availability of information assets. That it's termed as CIA in the information security parlance. Once that is clear, then one does a risk assessment, an evaluation of the qualitative and the quantitative analysis of the possible risks that the organization or the different processes in the organization could be exposed to, the infrastructure that is there in the organization that could be exposed to, so that it helps in focusing the resources to address the most critical threats with respect to prioritization. Then you go for risk mitigation. That you define the control measures, you identify and actually implement the control measures to mitigate or reduce the impact and likelihood of the identified area. Another important aspect is, if you need to develop and implement the security controls, you need all the stakeholders on the table. It's not possible for you to develop a risk mitigation or a risk management process or a policy without bringing all the stakeholders into the discussion, so that the buy-in is across the entire organization.
Okay, sir, would you elaborate your thoughts on this, that the wars and conflicts of the next century, or rather the next decades to come, would be now fought through computers and data, and the new army would be the info, cyber, digital warriors, and that's going to more or less, that is where a lot of resources are going to get committed.
Correct. So if we've seen the recent, whether it's the Ukraine war, whether it is the Israeli conflict, cyber weapons and tactics have now become one of the, I would say it is now the fifth, one of the top 5 ways in which war is waged. So whether it is, information manipulation, whether it is disinformation campaigns, whether it is digital espionage or intelligence, gathering, whether it is attacks on critical infrastructure, like, you've seen what happened with Iran, what happened with a lot of these countries, where countries launched attacks on other countries' critical infrastructure. Then in the conformance to the international norms and rules, for example, certain countries allow very lax security posture vis-a-vis other countries, which lead to a lot of cybercrime happening through those countries. And very little is possible when there are two sovereign nations involved, and one nation is at the receiving end of attacks, and the other nation is supporting it or not having controls in place to prevent it or take any remedial actions. And yes, digital warriors and cyber experts is something that is going to be the need of future conflicts. If I'm not wrong, the armed forces have also invested into this particular area of expertise significantly to ramp up the capability of the Army, Navy, Air Force to take up offensive security against possible adversaries.
Sir, now when we bring down this thing from nations, from sovereigns to corporations and then individuals, and since we all are connected, uh, how would you say that we as individuals should do some basics of risk management against maybe cyber attacks on our personal lives, or the way we are made to think, or I mean, how would you say that, what are those basics of risk management from a personal
Yeah.
perspective?
So if we were to identify, if we were to identify the reasons why we have gotten to this particular situation, it'll be easier for us to find the answers against that kind of a situation. So today, the interconnectedness doesn't really just limit to an organization. The interconnectedness is between nations, between corporations, between organizations, and of course between individuals. Today we are globally interconnected. It's no more that there are any boundaries. It's almost like a single large network where anyone is connected to everyone else. Second is the dependence. Today we are so heavily dependent on digital. To give you an example, Google uses feedback from you in order to guide you to where you want to go. It's such a strange kind of a situation that one is so dependent upon Google Maps to get to from place A to place B, and Google is using your feedback to tell you what is the traffic like, what is the delay like, what is the time to target, etc., like, etc., etc. So we are becoming heavily dependent on the digital tools. Then the sophistication of threats also is consistently increasing. Like one of the points that I had mentioned earlier was on the supply chain attacks. Now, imagine where the hacker is aware, has already studied that there are these suppliers within your organization who have a lesser priority on security vis-a-vis you as an organization, and they are using them because of their presence in your organization to go via and get into your organization. So the sophistication of threats has increased. Things like advanced persistent threats, which are launched by nation states against other nation states, like you saw with the nuclear facility being brought down. The sophistication is increasing. Supply chain vulnerabilities are also increasing. Most organizations today are outsourcing. So the number of outsourced players, the number of suppliers is increasing. So when there are so many non-organization parties within your organization, how are you going to manage all of that? So it is critical to be aware of these changing scenarios. Then the introduction of Internet of Things. Today, it is not only your desktop or your laptop or your phone that has an IP address. Today, your printer has an IP address, your refrigerator has an IP address, your washing machine has an IP address, your camera has an IP address. So anything with an IP address is susceptible, and it is susceptible to either getting hijacked or being used in a targeted attack. Then there are individual cybersecurity concerns. There is cyber bullying, there is cyber stalking, there is so many other personal threats to personal information, to financial data, to other online activities, even simple buying on sites like Flipkart or Amazon, or even on ticket booking sites like Indigo or any of them. There are so many possible potential vulnerabilities and areas that the information can be susceptible to change. And then when there are these large non-state actors that come in, it becomes even more, where it's like mercenaries, it's like cyber mercenaries, where you can have attack on hire. You can actually hire these non-state actors to go and attack organization, and those guys don't have any, they don't have any scruples, they don't have any models, they don't have any rules or acts that they need to follow. They just there for hire. So once we are aware of all of these things, then we can start thinking of how do we protect ourselves, or as individuals, what do we need to start looking at to protect.
Sure. When you said mine just went there, that's so. So my refrigerator, my microwave, so potentially everything in my house can be attacked by someone, and the entire household can be crippled if someone gets some access to, as you said, the IP addresses of my household items, and if done collectively, then this can be a very major challenge.
So let me add to that. Let me add to that inference that you just came to. Let me add two more suggestions to that. Number one, a pacemaker in your heart, for example.
Oh.
And number two, your smart car, like a Tesla.
Mm-hmm.
So you can imagine what is possible.
Wow. So if that be the case, do you think it's an exaggeration to say that probably cybersecurity as an industry is going to be one of the largest employer in next 3 to 5 decades, because you will need so many people to handle these kind of threats, and maybe when incidents happen, then I mean it's an entire continuum of activities that can go wrong, or prevention, and if it has happened, then afterthought and this and that and so many things.
Absolutely. Yes, I would fully endorse what your suggestion is. The increasing complexity and sophistication of cyber threats, coupled with the expanding digital landscape, suggests that there is a hugely growing trend for larger and highly skilled workforce in the cybersecurity industry. Absolutely no question. The demand for cybersecurity professionals spans across various sectors, whether it is government, corporations, non-profit, individuals, you name it. See, like you correctly said, if we add these devices, your washing machine, your refrigerator, your pacemaker, your car, etc., the entire attack surface is increasing. Today, any individual also is typically exposed to 2, 3 devices. You may have a laptop, you may have a desktop, you may have a phone, you may have a tab. So in individual also is attack surface has increased. So yes, the attack surface is increasing. The threat landscape is becoming so much more diverse. Earlier people were just going to attack you with viruses. Now people are attacking your mail, people are attacking you with phishing attacks, people are attacking your services with DOS kind of attacks. And I would say it is like a silver lining for this particular audience. There is a significant shortage of skilled professionals. That's a huge advantage for this particular audience, because by virtue of the shortage means that there is that much more opportunity. And if the correct focus is invested, this is a significantly remunerative and interesting direction to take. And with the need for constantly staying abreast because of rapid technological advancements, one needs to it is even the barrier to entry is that much higher. So again, from this audience perspective, that's an advantage. The higher the barrier to entry, the more need for security professionals, that much more the opportunity. And if you add the specialized roles that are required over and above, then again it becomes even more complex. And it is not, tomorrow governments are talking to private organizations for collaboration. Like I work with a lot of government public sector organizations, working together to try and see how to take the security posture to a better direction, what to do in order to get to a point that is more secure. So there is absolutely no question in my mind. But yes, having said all this, we also need to look at the other flip side, which is artificial intelligence. Now, a significant piece of the work can also get automated with artificial intelligence. Now, the key to this question is, what is it that the artificial intelligence will take on, and what is it that we'll continue to need the human for? Only then would the correct focus be possible to get invested in the right direction.
From what I understand, sir, I mean, probably, the general perception that information security is only probably related to my emails or my online life, or most of them think that in corporations it is more to BFSI because financial data is there. But from what you are telling me, and now I'm letting my imagination run, it's everywhere. So probably when you said nuclear power plant, so not just nuclear power plant, a coal power plant also would be using certain things which can be attacked, and the power plant can be shut remotely. And if this happens on a large scale, then the entire nation can be, I mean, held to ransom in terms of power generation. Even if it is for a short time, it's a huge impact.
Correct. So one of the regulating authorities that I had referred to in an earlier question is the NCIIPC, right? So the NCIIPC is basically the National Critical Infrastructure Related Organization that advises and constantly monitors critical infrastructure of the country against these kinds of problems. So yes, you're very correct. Power segment organizations like, say, the NTPC, the NHPC, even oil sector organizations like the IOCL, etc., they all use a system called SCADA. SCADA is a generic term which is used for management of the dam, the dam water, the power plant, the filling, the oil refinery, etc. So you're very correct that if the SCADA systems are compromised, then the possibility of damage is huge. So yes, you're right.
So we need these, I mean, these protocols, etc. They are continuously going to evolve. We need more and more people, and it's getting sophisticated because we are adding convenience. So when you say about artificial intelligence, the way I look at it is that artificial intelligence is going to work both the ways. It is going to add more sophistication, and as a result, it is also going to add more vulnerabilities because now the more digitized I am, the more vulnerable I am. And since I desire more comfort, so I'll continue to have more and more digitization, and it's everywhere. So I don't know. I mean, that's how I'm thinking. So
You're right. So yes, I mean, I don't want to sort of raise the bar on security, on the fear on information security here, but there are adversarial artificial intelligence platforms available now, which will guide you on how to attack based on inputs, prompts. There's a concept of prompt engineering. So once you give it the right prompt, it'll tell you exactly how to set up an attack. So yes, it works both ways. You're right.
it has actually happened. If we not too way back in the history, the Twin Towers were attacked by a simulated training on the aircraft simulator, and they were able to carry out a very precise attacks. So much more sophisticated form is wherein you have AI on both the sides, and so the world is going to get more interesting. I would say ignorance is bliss. One is not aware, and but yes, on a larger perspective, this is going to be a place where it's going to need more and more people to add things and also protect things.
Correct. Yes.
So that was a very interesting discussion, sir. Thank you so much for your time on this. We'll come back to you with some more aspects we intend to cover.